If you want, you can go. Is Lisa sharing her screen?
Looks like yes.
Yes, she is.
All right. And Lisa, are you using, is that a Google slide or a PowerPoint? We tried to turn on the closed captioning. That's why I was asking. Yep, it's a slide deck. Okay.
If you go to present again.
And then, do you see at the bottom? Yep. Let me double check that we're live real quick.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything.
Not yet? Okay, let me get my... Nope. It takes just a few minutes.
Now I see it.
Yeah,
I see it now.
Okay, we should be live and our captions are working great. Let me double check with the team that they can hear us okay. That was the problem earlier. We were having some really bad feedback. So anytime that we do this, you want to make sure that you don't have another, to make sure you don't have another tab
open, like the YouTube channel open with the volume playing, because that will cause feedback.
And that everyone is muted who's not presenting. So that looks good. And I'm trying to talk still to make sure they'll answer me about the sound.
So I'm still talking here until we can make sure. Sound is good. All right.
So good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for we had a few technical difficulties, but we are back up again. And my name is Kathleen Receiver, and I'm one of the digital innovation leaders with JCPS, and I work with the Elementary Zone 2 schools. And we are here today. We have trauma-informed practices during NTI instruction. And we have Lisa with us today. So we're glad that you're here. And then she has her team here as well. So we are ready whenever you all are.
All right, we're gonna go on and get started. I'm actually Lamisa Marchand. I'm in charge of trauma-informed care and social-emotional learning, and Jennifer will be presenting with me, and Lisa's helping with the slide deck. We also have Shay. She will be answering any questions that you have in the chat box.
Okay, great.
All right. All right, so we have our contact information both in the beginning and in the end, just in case you didn't catch it. In the beginning, we have it there for you at the end too, as far as our contact information. Jim, why don't you go on and check and see if you can unmute, because we had that issue yesterday.
Hey guys, I'm Jennifer Driscoll. Everybody hear me good?
Yes, awesome. All right. Next slide. All right, so here are our goals for training. We will review the basic elements of trauma, and we're going to discuss some areas of concern while really teaching our trauma-exposed students in this virtual learning platform. And then Jen is going to give you some great strategies that will support our students during this time as well. All right, so every time we do any training on trauma, we always do what we call a self-care alert. And that is because whenever you talk about trauma, you, of course, may start to think about trauma and feel negatively in some way, or some negative emotions may pop into your head, into your heart. And so we say if that happens, please feel free to take a break. Step away from your computer, walk around a little bit and take a break. Also, feel free to talk to someone. You can put some things in the chat box. Shay is there, or you can phone a friend, you can send a text, but talk to someone. Also, we suggest you do something relaxing, like maybe some breathing exercises, taking some intentional deep breaths so that you can kind of calm your body and calm your mind. All right, so in our chat box, and we may want to come back to this, I want you all to start chatting about what concerns you have about teaching our trauma-exposed students during in this virtual platform. So just do some chatting. And I'm sorry, our moderator, I didn't catch your name. So if you see something in there that you want to say to us, please let us know. All right.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm Kathleen. I'm here. I will for
Kathleen?
sure. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. We'll give them a minute to start chiming in. So what is trauma? So this is the definition that we use for trauma. Next slide. And that is witnessing or experiencing an event that poses a real or a perceived threat of death, serious injury, or sexual violation. And really, this event is unique to the experiences and perception of the individual. So when we talk about and think about teaching and reaching our trauma-exposed students via this platform, we have to really realize that trauma is in the eye of the beholder. And so some of our students may perceive, teaching and learning this way as being very traumatic because school is a safe place for them. School is where they have really built those authentic relationships with their teachers, their administrators, and their peers. And so that safety net has been pretty much snatched away from them. And so some of them may have a more difficult time now than before because our students that have had or have experienced trauma, they really have concerns around a couple of areas, one being safety, competency, and worth. And so safety really has to do more with, it can be physical safety, but it has more to do with psychological safety and emotional safety. And so when they are not in a place where they feel safe, it is going to be a little more difficult for them to learn. And so we always want to think about that when working with our kids during a platform like this. So here are some areas of concern. We talked about a sense of safety, that psychological safety, and Jennifer's going to go in detail about this, but these areas of concern have to do with making those connections and relationship building. Relationships are key to everything. And relationship building is what we call really a number one protective factor for our kiddos who have experienced lots of trauma. And so, of course, being away from our safe place, which is school, they're not able to tap into those relationships and that connection. And so a lot of them may have issues around worry and anxiety, that loss of community that you all work so hard to build within the classroom setting. That's going to be difficult during this time, and connections and relationships really work hand in hand. All right, so I think now Jen is ready to talk to you about these areas.
All right, so when we think about teaching our trauma-exposed students, we really have to think about trauma in a new and different way. We can't think about working with our students the same way that we always have before. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give you guys a few different areas to consider, and then we're going to talk about different strategies that can really support our trauma-exposed students, as well as all of the students that we work with on a day-to-day basis. So the first area that we're going to talk about is this idea of safety. And Lamisa really touched on this, but we're going to dive into it a little bit deeper. And so safety is that belief that our needs are going to be met. And that's the belief that the needs of those that we care about will also be met as well. It's also the belief that I will be protected from harm and that no matter what happens, I'm going to be safe. Now, I want you to think about the students that we work with. This is really being threatened right now for all of our kids. For the very first time in a while, they're having to question safety, even if they might have previously felt safe. For our trauma exposed kids, it's being threatened in new and different ways. And so our kids are really questioning, first of all, are my needs going to be met? Because I'm going to be home and I don't get to go to school and get 2 meals a day like I traditionally would. In addition to that, I'm at home a lot of times by myself. And so our students are really questioning things in new and different ways. And then we also have students who may not have been trauma exposed before, who are experiencing new and different traumas because of this virus. And so we're really diving into new safety concerns that we've never had to question before. And so we're not just thinking physical safety here, although that is a huge issue right now, but we're also questioning psychological safety. We're questioning emotional safety. And so it's really important that we start to think about ways that we can support our students during this time. Because as classroom educators, we've always been that soft landing spot for them. We've always created these wonderful learning communities where our students can come in and feel safe and loved on, because that's always been our number one goal. So let's talk about some great ways that we can support a student's safety in a virtual learning classroom or throughout this NTI process. The very first thing I want you to think about is how we can provide space and encourage students to connect and talk about their safety concerns. Now, I know a lot of us are thinking this is going to be incredibly difficult to do, but through the context of the relationships that we build, this is something that you can do each and every time you meet and connect. And this is a beautiful way to get students to talk about what's going on inside their homes or just what they're worried about, because a lot of our kids have very big and deep concerns. Next up, encourage students to talk to somebody that they just would normally connect with, whether it be family or friends, because that connection piece is vital. Help them to plan virtual play dates to distract them from their worries. I have a 4th grader and a 7th grader who really miss their JCPS schools. And my 7th grade student has a lot of anxiety. She tends to stress and overanalyze everything that happens. So one of the things that I've really encouraged my 7th grader to do is plan virtual hangouts with some of her friends so that she's not consistently analyzing everything that's going on. Recommend or include lesson plans that are fun and that are things that the kids can do at home. Also, really be present. That one's huge. And strive to keep your routine as predictable as possible during this work time. Now, what I mean by that is you don't have to be stringent in the things that you do. It doesn't have to be, well, we're going to do this and this. It means if you decide that you're going to assign a task on Monday and it's going to be due on Friday, and every week they're going to do, these 2 tasks, but we're going to have a Google Meet every Wednesday, stick to those guidelines, because kids look for the routines and predictability. And what that does, especially for your trauma exposed students, is it reminds them that you're going to be there for them. And that increases that psychological safety for them. So really strive to be consistent in those things that you do. So the next area that we're going to talk about is connectedness. And connectedness is so incredibly important for our students. Connectedness refers to having relationships with others who can understand and support you. Now, I want you to think about this one for just a second. In a traditional classroom, we have connectedness out the wazoo. We're connecting all the time in a ton of different ways. But right now, our traditional connectedness has been changed. Our students can't go to class and talk to their teachers like they traditionally would. We can't do our check-in and check-outs. We can't, our kids can't go and play on the playground or go to dance classes or baseball games or do all of the normal things that they would to connect. And so for our trauma-exposed students, this threatens the very thing with which they used to thrive. Because for our trauma-exposed students, a relationship is everything. For educators, that's the cornerstone with which we do everything that we do. Because it goes back to that old adage of kids don't care what you know until they know that you care. And so what we have to do in this time period is we have to think about connection in a new and different way. How can I, as an educator, connect with my students, connect with my parents, and still let them know that I've got their backs? And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about strategies that support connection in a new way. If you're in the chat box, I want you to also tell us about some of these new ways that you've been connecting with your students. Because if you're doing something amazing, we want to know about it also. And then we'll talk about it in a little bit. So first off, make time to ask your students about something fun that they're doing right now. I was a classroom teacher for over 10 years. I taught 8th grade language arts. I know how stressed out you are feeling about all of those standards that you are not hitting that you should be hitting right now, or the pressure that you feel like you need. But here's the deal. There is nothing more important than you could be doing right this minute than connecting with your students. Your trauma-exposed students, your babies, they miss you. Even if you teach 12th grade, those kids miss you. That connection piece is the most important thing you could do right this second. So make time to ask your students about something fun that they're doing. Give them that chance to talk to you about whatever it is that they need. I was talking to a friend of mine who teaches 7th grade, and she opened up an hour for her students just to ask questions. And she said all they wanted to do was talk about a video game that they were playing or that SpongeBob episode that they watched. And she said the thing that it reminded her the most is that her kids still needed her. And that's the thing. Open up time for that connection. Make sure that you're greeting your students by name still. Think about how many Zoom meetings you've sat in or Google Meets you've sat in the last week. How important was it that somebody talked to you and greeted you by name? I still want people to be like, hey, Jen, how are you? Because if not, I feel like I'm a stranger through the screen. So those things are incredibly important. Think outside the box here a little bit too. Consider putting your students together in small groups to do work. Because just because we're doing NTI doesn't mean that our students can't still work together. My 7th grader was working with a student in her theater class last night, and they were planning a skit, and they were videotaping it via Google Meets. So there are so many things that we can do in order to inspire connection. And those things are vital for our trauma-exposed students. They need to know that they're not alone. They need to know that they're not isolated. Because if we don't do that, they will feel like they are carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, and they will continue to isolate, and they will carry these problems on their own. Because for so many of our students, they're being parentified as it is. And so they're carrying a ton of problems. And if we don't remind them, hey, we've got you, and you've got friends to work with, then they will continue to deal with these problems by themselves. Last one I'm going to touch on this page is talk directly about the importance of connecting with others, whoever it may be, whether it's you as the teacher, or if you know that your students have a better relationship with someone else and say, tag, you're it, whoever, inspire that connection because it is so incredibly important. So the next thing we're going to talk about is this idea of hope. And this one is one of my favorites because it can inspire you to feel better. And hope is the expectation that everything will work out and that the feeling that things are going to be all right. For so many of our students, we have ripped the rug out from underneath them. For a lot of our trauma-exposed students, they feel lost. They thrive on the predictability and the tradition and the schedule and routine of school. And so when those things are taken from them, they're not sure where to go or what to do. And so for them, that hope may be a little bit lost. But when we talk about hope and when we ignite hope, we let them know that things are going to be okay. It doesn't feel like it right this minute, but it will be. So let's talk about a few strategies that really inspire hope. The first one is have students connect with someone in their family or community and talk about how they stayed hopeful in troubled times. This is so brilliant because it teaches students about resilience. And our students are nothing if not resilient. And so this shows them we all go through tough times and we're all going to bend a little, but we don't have to break. The next one is something we can do in class, and it's teaching students about other historical times of crisis. And then we can include how these communities have rebounded. You could do this in a social studies class, but then have them write about it in an ELA class. So it can be cross-curricular. There are so many things that you can do with this, because not only does it teach them about hope and resilience, but it teaches them that even though communities have been through tough times, they've gotten through it. And so things are going to be okay. Share some of the many stories of hope and helping that have come out of this current crisis. Every time we turn on the news, there are beautiful stories that are going on. There are some in our own school district. I was watching a story of one of my favorite schools in this district, Bick, and some of the awesome things that their teachers are doing with their students. Look for some of those things that you can highlight. Have your students share some of these things. Let them share some positive affirmations or talk about things that bring them hope. Because when they start to talk about it, it becomes inspiring to others. And then it's kind of like a fire that just catches on. And that's what we want to do. We want our students to feel that so that they can catch on and spread it to others. So let's talk about a few more strategies that can really support ourselves when we're working with our trauma-exposed students. Now, one of the things I want us to think about is that these strategies, although they're great for our students, are also really good for us as adults. Because when we think about trauma, it's not just over there, it's also right here. So I want you, as you're thinking about this, to also think about how you could utilize some of these for yourself as well. The first one is that a little R&R goes a long way. What do I mean by that? It's that relationship and routine should guide your way in everything that you're doing. Build positive relationships and allow that to take priority over everything else. I know that we're stressed out. I know that we're overwhelmed, but allow your relationships to be your guiding light and maintain that attitude of inclusivity. We're all welcome here. We're going to get through this together. And although we're all a little stressed out and overwhelmed, it's okay because we got this. Set a routine for the time that you work together, but remember to be flexible. Because here's the deal. By falling back on relationships and routine, but understanding that sometimes we just got to be flexible, this reminds students that the caring adults in their lives can and will take care of them when times get tough. And this just encourages that psychological safety that so many of our students need during this time. Let's look at a few more strategies that are going to help support us during this time. The first one is to start each session with a check-in. So if you're an elementary school person, this can be similar to your morning meeting. If you're middle and high school, this might kind of remind you of advisory. There's so many different ways that you could do this. If you're doing it over Google Meet, you could go around and greet each student verbally, and then you could do some kind of check-in question. Or if you're having each student fill out a Google form every day to take attendance, you could have them respond to a question each and every day. And this is a beautiful way to do a check. But it also lets your students know, number one, that you still care. Number two, that someone's there in case they need it. And so this is really important for us as classroom educators to continue that check-in process with our kids. And a lot of our kids still need that. Continue to ask open-ended questions. A lot of our kids need to talk, but they don't have that outlet. And so by keeping the questions open-ended, it allows somewhere for those thoughts to go. Remember to value effort from each student. Not all of our students have the supportive home environment that the others do. And so for some of our students, their houses may have essential workers in them, and they might be sharing one device amongst 4 to 5 siblings, and they might really be struggling to find the time to get that work done. And so remember that a little bit of effort can go a really long way for some of our students because they're just trying to figure out this entire process. So that effort is incredibly important. Think about utilizing things like a feelings chart to promote self-awareness, because I know that as a 30-plus-year-old woman, my feelings are all over the place throughout this. Think about our students who are just trying to figure out what's going on. They're feeling a ton of different things, but don't have names for it. And so if we can help them to identify, this is what you're feeling and why, let's talk about it. Let's try some of these coping strategies. It can really help them during this time. And it can really help them to identify, oh my gosh, that's why I was so frustrated today and I couldn't get any work done. So those things can go a long way during this time. There are a few more things that I want us to think about as we move throughout this time. The first one is to have flexibility, not just in the things that we do, but also in how kids respond, what they turn in, and also in our deadlines. Not all of our kids learn the same way. They don't all think the same way. They don't all operate the same way, just like we don't as adults. Also, don't always push for verbal participation when kids are logging on at home. Not all of our houses are as safe as what our classrooms were. And so some of our students don't feel safe responding verbally. So think about different ways to allow your students to respond, whether it's through a Google form or an email or whatever the case may be. Because some of our students don't feel psychologically safe inside that class, inside that household setting. And so we need to think about new ways to make sure that our students can still get those responses in. This one goes for all of us. Executive functioning may not be at top speed right now. We've all created a brand new normal in this space, and we've done it like that. We've had to figure out a new way to live, a new way to work, a new way to communicate, a new way to operate. And we've done it in a few weeks' time. Many of us are still trying to figure out how to handle the trauma that we have experienced. Some of us may be processing it now. Some of us may not process it for weeks. It may come in waves. And so because of that, our executive functioning is not going to be at top speed. And so we have to think about the fact that we're going to have to take in information a lot differently than we normally would. And so for our students, we need to think about giving instructions a little more slowly, trying to give instructions one at a time, and maybe in different ways. If we record a video, make sure we also send it out so that the students can read it as well and come back to it. And so for us as adults, we need to make sure that we give ourselves some grace with that. Because I know that there are times that I'll read an article and get ready to, sit down and create a PowerPoint on it or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, what in the world did I just read? So make sure that you're having realistic expectations for yourself and for the people that you work with and for your students. Because there are days when you're going to be knocking it out of the park and feeling great about all of this. But then there are also going to be days where you're not feeling any of it. I see it with my 7th grader and my 4th grader. There are days where my 4th grader sits down and reads 4 chapters at a time and is ready to knock out quizzes. And there are days where I cannot get a piece of work out of him. The same is going to go for us as adults. So make sure that you have those realistic expectations and that you give yourself some grace. All right, so I'm going to leave you guys with a quote, and then we'll see if there are any questions that we can respond to. I want you to think about this quote as you work throughout the next few days and as you grade. It says, relationship before rigor, grace before grades, patience before program, and love before lessons. I think this is so incredibly powerful as we learn a new way to do education. This is not going to be easy for any of us. We're totally redefining a new norm. So make sure that you give your students and yourself a little love and grace as we process these next few weeks, days, however long it's going to be. So I want you to look at this question in the chat box. Please feel free to respond to it, but let us know, how can we support you during this time? I know this is a new norm for all of us, but let us know, what is it that you all need as you support your trauma-exposed students? And just know that you're not alone. So are there any questions that we can respond to that we've seen in the chat box?
Jennifer, I don't see any questions, just a lot of great feedback. And this was just wonderful. I have encouraged people on Twitter to come on and watch this on our channel later. And I think for me, something that you can do for me to help with navigating these new roads is just continuing your team's positive energy and advice. It's just so refreshing to hear that and remind us of these things. So thank you so much for all of this great information.
Thank you so much.
Well, our contact information is on the last slide. If anybody needs resources on anything or help or questions, or if there's anything at all that we can do, please reach out to us. We are more than happy to help in any way we can.
All right, great. Thank you again so very much.
Thank you.
And I hope
Bye-bye.
you have a wonderful day. Bye.
You too.
Those who are still watching, you will want to stay with us because our next session is about counseling support systems for high schools. I'm excited to hear their advice as well as the advice we just heard. So you will want to stay around for that to listen to listen to their advice. And also, while we are waiting, if you need to know about our virtual training schedule, you can find that on our JCPS NTI support page. That is located under the NTI Teacher Toolkit with a bunch of other great resources for you. But our virtual training schedule is right here at the top. There's a button for that. And I cannot believe it, but it is already Wednesday. And we are right here with the NTI counseling support. So let's see, Jessica and Christy and Jasmine. Looks like they're joining in with us. Hello.
Hi.
We will. Good afternoon. We will get started here in just a little bit, in about 30 more seconds. It looks like Jessica will be sharing her screen for us today. Awesome. And Jessica, if you could click on that CC right there on that black bar, that will turn on the closed captions for our viewers. Awesome. And if an allow pops up, you may have to hit allow. And just a reminder, ladies, when we get ready to start here, if you're not speaking, you'll want to make sure that you have your mic muted.
Okay.
And that will help with feedback for us. Is it not working? Yep, you're good, Jessica. We can see your screen.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
There we go.
I can't tell by looking at it if
Yep.
you can see it.
Yes, we can see it. Yep.
Okay.
And then if you'll just click that closed caption again.
Did it work? Yes.
Yes, perfect. Great. All right, we are ready when you are.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Christy Bruckman. I'm one of the counselors that will be helping facilitate this presentation today. With me are Jessica Benson from Southern High School and Jasmine Drinkard from Louisville Male High School. What we'll be reviewing and talking about today are a couple of the support systems that as counselors we have developed for students. We're going to go through academic supports and services, college career counseling and transition services, personal social supports, and some of what we still have redesigned for crisis supports if there are emergencies with some of our students or their families. This all came about when those first 9 days of students being off school occurred. We had a group of counselor leaders meet to develop an NTI plan that is specific to how we deliver school counseling to students when we are in a non-traditional environment without the school walls around us. And so we developed a plan for each of those areas I mentioned on the previous slide. And we presented that to counselors over those 9 days, and then we are sharing it with teachers here today. I will be reviewing the academic counseling portion of the plan. If you look at the bottom right-hand corner, the detailed plan can be found by clicking on the link in the presentation, and that will take you to the whole plan. I'm just going to go through a brief overview today and look at some specific areas that I felt like would be helpful. This is through a lens of what I do at Wagner High School. So there may be some Wagner specific things here, but everything that I go over is information that all counselors should be covering. So one of the main things that counselors spend a significant amount of time doing are monitoring and checking in with students in terms of their progress towards graduation. So are they maintaining grades? Are their transcripts up to date and sent? Graduation requirements, and we're making progress towards completing those, transition readiness, and backpack defenses are just a few of the things that we would monitor on a normal day-to-day basis that we are continuing to do through non-traditional. What has changed a little bit is how we do that and how we communicate with our families. Whereas students and teachers could typically walk into many offices or make appointments and come see a counselor in person, that obviously has changed quite a bit. Parents could also make appointments and come in and see counselors and to review their students' progress towards these things as well. And obviously we can't have in-person meetings right now. So how have we adapted to that environment? And one of the things that I have done, or that Wagner has done, is we've created an NTI website for all of our teachers and counselors. So on that website, you can get to counselor specific information. So there's my page that Jessica has shared. My contact information is on there. I do have a phone number, weekly times for students to connect with me, as well as an appointment request, which is a Google form that students can, or parents can fill out and let me know what is the best way for me to contact them so that I can get back in touch with them to answer their questions or their concerns. In addition, for teachers, a lot of times teachers stop in and speak to counseling staff about student concerns, sometimes even about their own personal concerns. And that is obviously a little bit different now. So I offer a weekly set of office hours through Zoom where they are, I include the waiting room. So if a teacher wants to log in and speak to me privately, they can do so and we can discuss student concerns. If it's a situation where they're just chatting and it's okay, I might add more than one teacher in at a time. It just kind of depends on the scenario. But I make that available every week for teachers to just call in and check in with me about their kids or themselves. In addition to that, for students, is probably where I have created the most new learning for myself. I have a new phone number where students can reach out to me. It takes text messages as well as phone messages. So students and parents, teachers all have access to that number. It's on the website. Obviously, email is still a main way of communicating. And then I've learned a bunch of new platforms. Google Meets and Google Hangouts are huge now in my world. I spend a lot of time on those. And then I already had in place a Remind app. That app allows me to push out messages to an entire group of students. And I run the IT and Law Academy. So for my academy, I already had a class of 2020, class of 2021, and a class of 2022 already set up. So I've pushed out a lot of information to my students that way. It's also a platform where I don't have their cell phone number, but they can send it like a text. So they can communicate back and forth through there. And that app has been really, really beneficial right now in helping us connect with our students. A lot of counselors have also moved on with some electronic communications with newsletters, websites, blogs. These have all been very beneficial for connecting with students. On those platforms, we can then upload and provide students with instructional videos on how to study in this new environment, how to connect with their teachers, how to maintain their own self-health. And I think Jessica will talk a little bit more about that later on. For our students that need intensive support, we have been developing and working with our teachers on new ways to connect with those students. We have at Wagner developed a no contact list per academy, and we were really pleased. We were able to collect data and make sure that we had reached 95% of our students last week. After having completed that, we were then able to develop a mentoring program. So the students we had not heard from, we identified a very small number of people and matched them up with adults in our building who are reaching out to every person on their student contact list to try and find out what the best contact information is for that student, how to get them connected and plugged in. Each of our upperclassmen counselors also maintains a graduation concern list and has reached out to their students on that list individually. And checked in with their teachers as well to make sure that those students are finding ways to get plugged in so we can keep them on track towards graduation. We will still provide referrals as necessary to mental health practitioners, Friskies, and as well as community resources. The last thing I want to talk about is how teachers and counselors can partner together, because that really is, for me, in my role, and in my building, a huge component. Sometimes students reach out to teachers more or sooner than they reach out to the counselor. And so keeping that open door communication is really important to me, and making sure that my teachers know that I'm a resource that they can reach out to if they are having problems, or connecting with students. So if the student is not engaging in the NTI process, is not logging in, I want to know that about every single one of my students. If the teacher finds out that there's a concern, a student doesn't have access, a student doesn't have food, or if they are having mental health concerns, I want teachers to reach out and have an opportunity to let me know that, so that I can support both the teacher and the student. What I ask teachers to do is to help students access those resources. If a student isn't comfortable with with the process for reaching out to me, if they don't feel comfortable with the Google platform or Hangouts, helping that student learn those programs and navigating them if necessary. And then lastly, keeping in mind that already struggling students might be less comfortable in this environment, and what we want to do is reach out to them as much as possible to engage. There are opportunities here for some remediation, recovery of content that are maybe silver linings to the situation that we're in, and seeing where we can help those students plug into those opportunities requires teacher and counselor to work together. Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to Jessica. I don't mean Jessica, Jasmine, my fault.
Hi, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. So again, my name is Jasmine Drinkard. I'm a school counselor at Louisville Mill. So much of what Christy talked about carries over into the college and career transition counseling, because the biggest thing is to make sure our students are meeting all the requirements necessary for graduation so that they are ready for that next transition. A lot of our students tend to fall into one of two categories, specifically our seniors. I will say with NTI, the focus primarily when it comes to college and career transition counseling has really been on our seniors because, obviously they are at the end of their high school road. And, we want to make sure that they have the support and the information so that they can make the best transition given the way things are right now, which no one can really help. So we do still have some kids that are still in the college application process. Every school does, kids who were maybe waiting for their grades to come up, are waiting to take that ACT score or whatnot. And so in that event, we are still processing transcripts. We process all transcripts through Parchment. So that is something that is done within the counseling office. So definitely making sure that you are aware of who is the person who does that in your school. I know in every high school it's different, whether it's a counselor or specifically in our school, it's a records clerk. So just making sure you know that, because you may have students who reach out to you, asking about how they can get their transcript sent. Again, like Christy said, you all are really on the front line with Google Classroom and interacting with the kids daily. So they may check in and ask general questions like that. Also, Coyote scores. I know for our school, we do have Coyote scores available for students. And so there's a different process for sending those scores. Many of you may teach classes where you have groups of students in there who maybe did not hit their benchmark, but they have their Coyote score and they want to get that to the institution. So those are things that we're still processing as well. I will say in the era of college counseling specifically, it's changing day by day. Requirements are changing day by day, if not minute by minute. So, as of right now, a lot of institutions are waiving their ACT scores for students entering in the summer or the fall of 2020. So with that being said, I know as far as local institutions, Murray State, Spalding, Transy, for example, was already you could already waive your ACT so that you could apply without that being a consideration for admission. So definitely we are staying on top of that information so that we can pass that on to students. We're still providing recommendation letters. You yourself may have students reach out to you in regards to recommendation letters. I like to say that even in the midst of, if we were not doing NTI, right now is a big scholarship season for local community and organization scholarships. So a lot of people are still having that as an opportunity for students. And then definitely providing any additional reports or submissions electronically through Common App for institutions so that students can still get admitted. I will say that we're not leaving behind our underclassmen, our juniors. We really try to encourage them to do college visits at this time, which is kind of hard to do with social distancing. So a lot of colleges and institutions are allowing students to have virtual college visits, which are on their admission websites. So definitely, if you are having conversations with kids about their future and whatnot, letting them know that that is an option is wonderful. Now, specifically for our seniors who have been admitted, right now, honestly, I think it's a scary time for a lot of our seniors who have been admitted. They have watched many institutions have their kids pack up and come home. And so, this is where I really try to connect my students with the college admissions reps. So, every school, every high school in JCPS has a college rep who is assigned to their school to work with their students. And they are really that liaison between the institution and the student. And so as counselors, we have really good partnerships with the college admissions reps, and they work with us to help our students. So, encouraging students to make sure that they are checking their email, checking their text messages, because a lot of the college admissions reps are reaching out to them through those platforms to pass on information in regards to what registration or orientation is going to look like for their institution, and definitely housing. I will also share, I would say the number one question that many of us are getting hit with right now is financial aid. I would encourage that if a student reaches out to you and shares that they're worried about being able to pay for college, encouraging them to either one, reach out to their school counselor so we can be that level of support and connect them to the appropriate person, or two, have them contact the financial aid office of the institution that they plan to attend. Right now, fortunately, everyone who works in financial aid offices in multiple institutions across the state, they're all able to work remotely from home. So they are available to meet with students and their families, and talk about maybe what options they may have for them. We're in this situation where maybe some students who were not eligible for aid based on the income of their parents, now due to them being laid off and all of that, there may be other options for them. So again, connecting the students to that resource. And at the bottom, you can see the detailed college and career plan as well if you want to click on that. So another big primary focus for all of the school counselors in JCPS right now is the My Senior to-do list. So I've kind of talked about a lot of things in this to-do list, but I'll just go over some of the ones that we didn't spend any time on. One being the ordering of caps and gowns. This is one of those instances where, we are asking families, if it's not of a financial burden to their family, to definitely go ahead and order their cap and gown if that's something that they wish, but definitely something that they do. But we definitely do not want people or any of our students or families to, having this be an additional financial burden by ordering their caps and gowns. And this is also connected to school fees. I will say you can check with your high school to see how they are handling both of those scenarios, because each school is different. But again, you may have students reach out to you because, again, you're on the front line. Like Chrissy said, working with school counselors to ensure that your students are passing your classes, or creating some type of recovery platform so we can ensure that they're able to move on, specifically our seniors for transitioning. Making sure that, specifically in your classes, that there are opportunities for them to add things to their digital backpack, for our seniors. Obviously they will not be able to present at my school through the lens of mail. We are allowing our students to do a voiceover with their presentation and submit it to us to be graded in that format. And again, working with students on a case-by-case situation if that's not available. The completed senior transition survey is something that's already been pushed out to your seniors at your school. This will be something great for you to maybe mention in your classrooms for them to go ahead and complete. It really gives the district a lot of feedback in regards to where our students are planning to go. And we've talked about transcripts and registration for colleges and institutions. I will say if any student is still planning on playing a sport, making sure that they have completed the eligibility center with NCAA application, worked with the counselors in the event that they need any information uploaded, with the same being for the military. So back on the Google slide, or on our slide, I have provided some resources for you. This has just really been our response to our students in regards to college counseling that you can check out at your leisure, of making sure that we're providing access still to scholarships. That is, if you want to click on that one, Jessica, not all of them, but on the scholarships link, this is a link that we are managing daily. Literally every day we are adding scholarships to this link. Well, it looks like I need to fix that.
Link's not working. I'm sorry.
It's okay. But definitely checking with your high school and seeing how scholarships are being provided to students or where that information is being uploaded. So that is something that we are still monitoring and uploading, so students are still having the opportunity to get some money to pay for school.
Hey, Jasmine, can you make sure that you all give these resources to us so we can get them linked up on the virtual training schedule for our viewers?
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Thanks. This is great.
Okay. My name is Jessica Benson, and I am a counselor at Southern High School. So I'm going to talk about the personal social ways that counselors are reaching out to students and providing services for students during NTI. The first thing I want to do is, again, just remind everybody that we have the detailed plans linked here. So please look over those, because we're giving you all details about things that we're doing at our specific schools, because we've implemented those things and can speak to those in detail. We want to make sure that you all look at the our detailed entire plan, so that you might look at some things that might be applicable at your schools. As far as personal social, the first and most important thing is just that counselors are still available to support kids who may be dealing with a mental health or just mental wellness, or need, some additional supports. So the main thing that we are doing is making sure that people know we're still available for that type of support. So we are working with students, staff, and families to make sure that we provide communications between teachers and families, or between students and staff, or we do mediations in order to make sure we're facilitating that communication, because right now communication is so important since we're in a new way or a new environment as far as how we're handling school. At our school in particular, one thing that we've implemented is our PLCs are creating a watch list. So for each PLC, when they meet, they also fill out a Google form that has a column that says, if a teacher believes that a student needs support from a counselor, or they might need to get them connected to counseling services, even if that means outside agency services, then they're going to put that student's name on the watch list, and counselors monitor that watch list, and they make contacts and take it from there. We also are communicating, of course, via email, and then we have counselor requests also, just like Wagner had, and we've updated the counselor request to make sure that it has a space for people to request a live conversation, or by phone, just so that students and families know that we are available in many different ways, and we still are providing mental and personal social services. Another thing that we wanted teachers to know, and another thing we're focusing on, is making sure that we are checking in on students' academic and career issues, because when I've been meeting with my students, most of them are stressed about those particular things. They're stressed about things connected to school. And one thing that has really helped is empowering the students to find solutions. So one group of my students decided that they would have a motivation group. So counselors are making sure that students are able to work together and that they are able to have information about ways that they can empower themselves to find solutions through these tough times. So if kids are feeling stressed, one thing that we've been doing is making sure that they're empowered and that they are have the ability and the time to communicate with one another to find solutions and give us feedback on solutions to help them. Another thing that we're doing as far as personal social is providing virtual recorded counseling sessions to help students navigate through the NTI process. Because again, many students are just, dealing with feelings of the unknown and isolation. So part of it is giving them information about how to navigate through this process and just offering, recorded sessions. I know Heather RL has always talked about the power of pause. So if we put information out there, virtual recorded sessions, kids can go on and access those as they need them. And we're just making sure to provide a variety of things that'll help them to get through this time where they don't necessarily have access to a counselor. Like at my school, we have an open door policy. So since kids can't just walk into our office, we're trying to offer those virtual recorded sessions so they can, sort of walk in and listen to those as needed. Also on our newsletters and blogs and Google Classrooms, we're offering different links to personal and social support or mental wellness support. I know on my school's newsletter, we have links to, for instance, the YMCA has free exercise videos and things like that. We also have some videos as far as meditation and articles about how you can do lots of different things to, relieve stress during this time. At our school, we're also doing biweekly check-ins or small groups via Google Meet. And I know everybody's been talking about using Google Meet, but this is another way that you can use it is to, check in with kids and have small groups based on the needs of your students. So for instance, a group of my seniors are really working on just being motivated. They feel like that, they just want to stay at home and not do much of anything, but we're setting up a small group so they can all get on together. It's something that they can engage in to keep them motivated. So that's a way that you can use Google Meet, or the way that we're using Google Meet to administer small groups. I put an asterisk by that because we've been informed that we should be using Google platforms for students rather than Zoom. So I wanted to make sure to mention that, just because we have limited confidentiality, and when it comes to small groups, we want to make them informational, but sometimes students may talk about things that shouldn't be shared. So we want to make sure we're using Google Meet for students. Also creating virtual campaigns. I know lots of schools have created virtual, sort of like spirit weeks, but at my school, we are creating a virtual campaign for Stress Less. In the fall, we did a Stress Less week at our school, and what I've decided to do is create that virtually. So when I click on this, I'm going to scroll down. So on the virtual campaign, I'm going to have links to daily meditation, links to yoga and different free exercise programs. I mentioned the Y earlier. They have free exercise programs. There's information about the power of pets. There's an article here that talks about different things you can do with your pets and animals to relieve stress. And then I also have several different links to coping skills for students and plans for coping skills, so that students and parents can make plans for dealing with loneliness or isolation or feelings of the unknown, or if students have had issues with anxiety or depression, then they can work through that. And then there's one link on here specifically for seniors and things that they can do during this time. Okay. Sorry. All right. Now, also we are offering office hours for teachers who may need support. Okay. last but not least, for our Tier 3 students, these are students who have previously exhibited the need for more intense mental health support. We are holding weekly meetings, and we have a shared Google Sheet with our mental health practitioners and Friskies and our outside agency counselors, just to make sure that we are keeping abreast of information and communicating with those outside helpers to make sure students are continuing to get what they need. Counselors are also helping to distribute consent forms, because now that we're in the virtual setting, we must have telehealth consent forms on file. So we are helping to distribute that. We are also doing weekly check-ins for our Tier 3 students. We are connecting students to our community partners. The community partners are still supporting students, even though it's virtually. We just want to make sure teachers knew that those services were available. We also wanted everyone to know that we are creating specialized safety plans. And one really important thing that we wanted to share with teachers is that we still have a duty to report child abuse. So teachers, please make sure that you know we still have a duty to report child abuse or neglect. And I have linked here that there are different ways to do that. You can do it online or email or via phone. I like using the email because then I have record of what I did. And last but not least, we consistently are advertising our suicide hotline. If students or anyone needs help in the event of a crisis, we are advertising that. And we're coming up on the end, but I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that our district is still providing crisis counselors. If there is a need for a crisis counselor or a crisis counseling team, please contact your administrative team, and they'll contact Michelle Searcy, our counselor lead, and then you'll go through each of these steps to make sure that they will assess and see if we need crisis counselors to be provided, or if they'll give you other options for crisis support. And I think that's everything. We're ready for questions because I think we're just about out of time.
Great. Thank you so much, ladies. That was wonderful information. And I don't think we have any questions. We just have a lot of positive feedback in the chat. So thank you so much for sharing this information. And then if you, like I said before, if you will, this is Kathleen Receiver, you can send me, myself, or Heather Worrell the links to your resources, and we can get those linked up on the virtual training. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So if you are still with us, you do not want to leave, because coming up right now next, we have Lacey Eccles, and she's here to talk to us about using Phet simulations to engage students in science modeling. How's it going, Lacey? Make sure you unmute yourself there. There you are. Yes.
As I'm screaming.
That's okay. And you can, when you go back to your presentation, yep, if you want to click on that hide button right there so it doesn't cover up. Yep. And then also, do you see the CC in that black that rectangle that just kind of went away over to the left?
I do.
If you could turn on those closed captions for us and click allow. That way all of our viewers are able to hear and see this wonderful information.
Oh, you fancy.
We try.
All right, am I on?
Yes, we are ready when you are.
All right, great. Hi, everyone. I am Lacey Eccles. I am the K-12 science lead for JCPS, and I am pleased to be here to talk about using Phet simulations during NTI to help engage our kiddos in the practice of scientific modeling. So let's get started. So our agenda today for this kind of itty-bitty 30-minute power session is to talk about what is Phet, how we navigate the website, Phet in our standards, and then the last two I think you'll find incredibly interesting and useful is Phet in Google Classroom. We're all living in that world right now. And then Phet in our device compatibility, because we know our kiddos have all different kinds of devices at home. And so what has Phet done to make their product compatible with all kinds of devices? So let's talk about what Phet is. Phet, for those of you that have never used it before, is a collection of well over 100 interactive simulations for students to provide them with kind of an open, exploratory environment where they can engage with the science content like a scientist. And there's actually math as well. But we're not talking about math right now. We're talking about science. So let's talk about how we navigate the website. There's a lot on that website. And so, and a lot of great kind of different resources on the website. So I kind of want to walk you through some of the highlights of that website. So this is the Phet kind of landing page, their home page. And if you click right in the center, you see my Albert Einstein? If you click play with a sim, that will take you into their site. And on their homepage are any of their new sims that they've created. And that changes very often. So like today, they're highlighting several math sims that are new additions, like integers, vectors, vector addition, blah, blah, blah. So if you want to talk to your math teachers and make sure that they know about Phet, there's lots of great math simulations for kiddos to engage in on Phet. So if we scroll up to the top, you'll see a little person, and you don't have to have an account. But if you have an account, you're able to save your sims. Now, your students don't have to have the account. I'm saying as a teacher, it's free. You can save some of your sims, upload some of your lessons for other teachers. So if you'd like to create your own account, that's where you would create it. And then right over here where we see simulations, you'll see a list of all the different ways that you can search for specific simulations. New sims, HTML5, by subject matter. We could even search, for example, by math if we were a math teacher, or by grade level. So we have elementary, middle, high, and university. And what you'll notice too is you might find the same sim in each category or in a couple of them, because the sim themselves kind of span over multiple grade levels. It's what you do with the sim that makes it elementary specific or middle specific or high school specific. All right, you can also search, check this one out, by device. Are your students using iPads and tablets? Are they using Chromebooks? These are the sims that would be compatible with those types of devices. If we go over to teaching, the first one I want to highlight is tips for using Phet. This is a great place if you want to look at some other videos that go beyond what we'll be talking about today, like interactive lecture demonstrations using Phet with clickers, facilitating Phet activities, designing Phet activities. So there's lots of other videos that Phet have created that take this one step further than what we're talking about today. So that's a great place to go for resources. You can also go to browse activities. And I really like this. So if I am, per se, a middle school teacher, and I am right now in my chemical interactions unit, I might click chemistry in middle school. Now notice I can choose all kinds of languages, but we're just going to stick with all languages. And I can click browse. And this will take me to a list of all different teacher-made resources for middle school chemistry. So maybe I want to do a build the atom game. And if I click on it, right here is my ability to download that resource. And so there are a ton of different resources for a ton of different categories and topics. And so that's a great place to find some things that you can actually are already made to make this a little bit easier for you. Now, if we go back to simulations, and let's stick with chemistry. And let's stick with, I'm a middle school 6th grade teacher, and I want a simulation about the phases of matter. So I'm going to look at all of these fantastic resources for chemistry, all different kinds of grade levels, but I see, oh, here's one about states of matter. So if I click on that simulation, every simulation drops you into this kind of landing page where you'll notice, look at that right there. That's a Google Classroom, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you can see the simulation, and the first little bloopity is about, and it tells you what your topics are, a description of it, and sample learning goals. And those sample learning goals are a great place to start when you're thinking about what are your learning goals for your upcoming instructional unit in NTI. But then the next tabby is for teachers, and this is great. So every Phet simulation has a teacher tips PDF. Now, not every Phet simulation has a video primer, but if I were to click on a teacher tips PDF, it takes me to a PDF walkthrough of exactly how to use that Phet simulation. It talks to me about model simplifications. It also, if you aren't, really strong in phase change diagrams, it talks to you a little bit more about the phase change diagrams that are in this simulation, suggestions for use, and sample challenge prompts. Now, this sheet is meant for the teacher, not meant for the student. So this is background knowledge for the teacher. But you also, under for teachers, have a very similar thing to the PDF, but if you're more of a kind of visual auditory learner, there is a walkthrough video primer for the actual simulation. Now, again, that is for you as the teacher. You wouldn't want this to be with the students because you're kind of giving away the secret sauce if you show them the video primer. You want to give them time for some open exploration to discover what all the pieces and parts do before you give them any type of specific instructions. Because as soon as they open that, that's the first thing kiddos are going to want to do, is play with all the buttons and do all the things. And so if you make some time in your instruction for students to actually do that, a set amount of time, that gets that out of the way. And then underneath it, you will see teacher submitted activities that go along with that Phet simulation. You have the level and then the type, like homework, lab, demo. This is a homework or a lab. This is a lab. So all different activities that have already been created by teachers for you to open up, look at, modify, use as is, so you don't have to recreate the wheel. Now, if as a teacher, I want to download that simulation so we can play around with it, you're going to click download. And then we're going to open up the simulation. And look how pretty that is. So this simulation technically has 3 different simulations within it. And really, this simulation can take you from elementary school all the way to high school. I could use this exact same simulation. So if we want to look at the states of matter, and we have all of these different buttons, maybe I want students to start with water. And this is water in a solid state. And maybe my question is, what happens to the molecules of water when we add heat into the system? So we're adding heat, we're adding heat, we're adding heat. Looks like they're starting to move a little faster. Oh, look, some are starting to kind of fly away from the collection. And what if I wanted students to be describing what's happening in the model? I can have a student push pause, and I can come over here to these 3 dots, and every simulation has the ability for me to take a screenshot. So think about that. I could screenshot my model, insert it into a Google Doc, and then as a teacher, I can see exactly what they're seeing when they're writing their description. So maybe in my description, I say I inputted heat into the system, and this was what happened to my system. I could also have students do some type of cause and effect, or I could get in a cross-cutting concept in this. But being able to screenshot and pause my model kind of mid-screen, like a freeze frame, is an incredibly exciting addition to Phet simulations when we're thinking about NTI. I can go back to home, and maybe I want to think more about the phase change. So now I've added some other pieces. I've added the ability to add pressure to my system. I've added the ability to add in more particles to my system. Now, over here, there's a lot going on. And maybe if I'm a middle school teacher, we don't really care about that. And we don't really care about that. But if I was a high school teacher, we absolutely care about these 2 pieces. So that's a way to take the same simulation and up the rigor and up the grade level that it's appropriate for. And so one simple states of matter simulation can take us through elementary school all the way through high school. So I might be doing a 5th grade PS1 standard just about matters made of particles. Then I might be doing a middle school, PS1-4 about phase changes, or I might be doing a high school PS1-3 about the interaction between atoms and their bonding. So you can see how one simulation can take you through several grade levels. And so that's essentially how to navigate the Phet website. So if we go back to our presentation, let's talk about Phet in our next generation science standards. That is a fantastic tool to use when we're thinking about our standards. Like you just heard me talk about, that one simulation that we looked at was aligned to a 5th grade performance expectation, a middle school performance expectation, and a high school performance expectation. If you're a middle school teacher who's watching this video, right here is a live link. Some kind soul out there in the World Wide Web made a crosswalk of Phet simulations and middle school performance expectations. That kind soul apparently was not an elementary or a high school fan because they only made it for middle school. But it's live linked right here, middle school teachers, as a resource. But what I really want to focus on is how great Phet simulations are for the science and engineering practice of developing and using models. And so with our standards, there are science and engineering practices, cross-cutting concepts, and disciplinary core ideas. Remember, the disciplinary core ideas are kind of the meat in the middle, what we traditionally think of about science. But the science and engineering practices are the doing of science. And so when we think about NTI and how can we get kiddos engaged in those SEPs, the actual doing, right, the performance of science, well, Phet simulations is a great tool to virtually still engage students in some science and engineering practices. And so developing and using models is like the superpower of all practices. It's my favorite personally. And I genuinely think it's some of the kiddos' favorites. So when you think of models, I'm not thinking about a cell model that you could eat. Stephen Pruitt, one of the developers of the next generation science standards, always jokes that if you can eat it, it's not an NGSS model. And so when we're thinking about modeling in this case, we're thinking that simulations are models. Simulations are ways, if we're thinking about the one that we were just looking at, are a way to model things that we can't see. You're looking at your computer screen right now, but you can't see all of the particles that make up your computer screen, and you don't want to heat your computer screen up to see what happens to those particles as you add heat. And so that's where simulations come in. They are tools that we use to replicate systems in the real world. And systems models, just FYI, is a cross-cutting concept in our standards. So we're also hitting that as well. So the great thing about the standards are that developing and using models starts in kindergarten and goes all the way through 12th grade. We're just adding on to it. So if we think about our states of matter example, and that's really appropriate for some 5th graders. And so right here, identify limitations of models. That's one of the things that kiddos need to know how to do when they leave elementary school. And I might, when kiddos are using the states of matter simulation, I might ask them in our Google Hangout or in whatever platform you're using to have class discussions about, so what are the limitations of the models? That's a big word, right? But that's a word that the standards say that kiddos should be able to know by the time they leave elementary school. And so this framework right here is for you, but it's also for students. The language in this developing and using models is language that students should be able to use. How was this model like the real world? And how was this model not like the real world? Or I'm down here. We are using a model to describe phenomena in the real world, right? That's something we're doing in elementary school. Well, in middle school, I don't just identify the limitations, but then I'm asking kiddos to evaluate those limitations. Or maybe I'm asking kiddos down here to revise the model. So maybe we have a model and then I add some more heat. So I'm revising my model because now I know more about it. And then I get to high school. And now I'm looking at the limitations of 2 different models. So maybe we are looking at phase change with argon and phase change with water and comparing those 2 models. And so you can see how it becomes more and more complex as we progress, yet I'm still using the same Phet simulation at all of the levels. And so it's really easy to use Phet simulations and dive into developing and using models, as long as kiddos know that their Phet simulation is a model and asking them, what are we modeling? And then the other science and engineering practice that I think goes really easily with, and really any of our science and engineering practices can be used with Phet simulations. We can construct explanations. We can ask questions. We can do all of them. There's just some that are a little simpler that lend themselves a lot easier to Phet simulations. And the other one is analyzing and interpreting data. And so there are several Phet simulations, a lot of physics and chemistry ones specifically, that ask kiddos to gather data. Like if I'm in energy skate park, I'm gathering data about the kinetic and potential energy of the system. If I'm in our phases of matter one that we use today, do you remember when we had that phase change diagram? Well, that's a phase change graph. And as we add heat, there are different points on the graph that change. And so that could be at a high school level, analyzing and interpreting data within that very same simulation. So for the next generation science standards, Phet simulations are ripe with opportunities for students to engage in the standards, to engage in the practices, which is a piece of the standard, to very easily engage in cross-cutting concepts like cause and effect and systems models and looking for patterns. I could talk forever about Phet and NGSS. So when students are using their Phet simulations, as long as you make it transparent to kiddos what practice they're engaged in, you are tightly aligned to the standards. So now that we've talked about kind of how to use the website and talked about how those simulations align with our standards, let's talk about kind of Phet and the usability. Our agenda said we were going to talk about Phet in Google Classroom and Phet and device compatibility. And so really, Phet has released 2 really short, like 30-second videos each, and they can explain it 1,000 times better than I can explain it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the first one. Can we hear that?
Yes, we sure can.
So, that couldn't be any more seamless and couldn't be any simpler than clicking a button and shipping it to your kiddos. So they've done a really nice job with integrating into Google Classroom. And they've also done a really nice job with device compatibility. So let's look at that one real quick. And it likes to start.
Maybe turn your volume up a little bit, Lacey.
Okay. Wow. The fact that they are going back through and transitioning everything to HTML5, I think is fantastic. They also spoke a little bit about Phet apps. There is an app for Android and there's an app for Apple. So if you have students that are using their phones as their device, they can download the apps. A ton of their simulations have moved over to HTML5. I know they're working as fast as they can to kind of move everything over to that for more device usability. All right, so that is kind of a snapshot about Phet simulations. I know my colleague Michelle Tedford was looking at the chat box to see if there were any specific questions that I could answer. Michelle, do we have any?
Make sure you unmute, Michelle.
There we go. Hey, Lacey, sorry, but I don't have a chat pop up anywhere on my screen.
That's okay. You access it from the digital learning channel. We do have one question. If you all can mute your mics, or if Michelle, if you can mute yours again. Let's see. Lacey, do you have particular recommendations for simulations that are a good fit for NTI in terms of where classes might be instructionally? Do you?
So, can you hear me?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So if that teacher wants to reach out to me via email right here with what grade level they are and where they are instructionally, I can help them kind of navigate which Phet simulations would potentially best fit the instructional unit that they're in. Every school is doing something differently as far as are they doing new content? Are they in old content? And so if you shoot me an email of exactly where you are in, I will happily help you navigate and figure out which simulations are best suited for you.
Okay, great. Because it was asked also if they were available on the NTI platform.
So the Phet simulations are linked on the Science NTI platform.
Okay.
So that is one of the resources that are found there.
Okay, and is that underneath the teaching and learning resources? Is that where they can find it?
Yes, that is exactly.
So I'm showing you that on the screen for our viewers. Under the NTI support, the teacher toolkit. Right, they can find that right there. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So great feedback. Thank you so much, Lacey. This was awesome.
Problem. All right, same time, same place tomorrow at 2:00.
Okay, great. We'll see you then.
All right.
Okay, so for our viewers, we have a few more minutes until our next session. So I will go ahead and show you.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Sorry, but because I'm going to be on here tomorrow as well. Where do you access the chat? I'm in as a presenter and can't see it.
Okay. If Michelle, if you could email one of us, we can get you the instructions for that. You're on the live channel. This is Kathleen, receiver.
Okay.
Lacey has my information. You're welcome. So for our viewers that are still here, we are offering this again, like Lacey said, and you can view our training support schedule on the NTI support page. And we have several more sessions coming up. Two more this afternoon. And then tomorrow and Friday are also jam-packed with sessions as well. So make sure you check back for that. And Lacey's resources will be linked on her name here on the virtual support schedule. So we will get those linked in very soon. I know she was reaching out to us. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. They already are linked. So all of her resources are linked here. And her video, we will break these videos up within the next week. And we will be able to put those on the channel. So if you want to come back and watch it again or have a colleague watch it again, you can tell them that as well. And next up, here in a few more minutes, we are going to have the pleasure of hearing from Library Media Services. Nancy's going to be here with us, finding reading materials for high school. So if you are a high school teacher or you know of one, you definitely want to stay around for that. We have a couple more minutes, so stick with us. I'm going to look for an infographic to show you. Bear with me here for a moment. Sorry. We had a little technical difficulties early on, but I think we are all as well now. And Nancy, are you here with us? So Nancy's not here just yet. I think
I'm here.
Oh, she is here. Yay. Okay, I thought I saw you. There you are. Awesome. And so Nancy is going to be talking to us today about finding reading materials for high school students. Is that correct?
Yes, high school, secondary. This will work for middle school as well.
Okay, great. Great. When you are ready and you present your screen,
Okay.
we just want to make sure we can try to get the closed captioning turned on. So we'll see if we can do that.
All right. So share screen.
Uh-huh.
All right. And that.
Yep. Are you showing it live or from a like a Google slide deck, or are you going live with it?
It's live.
Okay. Then we won't do the closed captioning part. But down at the bottom, if you want to hide that little box so we can make sure to see your entire screen. And it is 2:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Kathleen Receiver, and I'm one of the digital innovation leaders for IT3. And we are here today with Nancy, and she's going to talk to us about how to find reading materials for our secondary students. So whenever you're ready, Nancy, we are ready to learn from you.
Okay. So hi, everybody. I hope everybody's doing fine. Like she said, I'm Nancy Chiara. I'm the metadata librarian with Jefferson County. And I'm going to share some resources today that are specific to secondary students. There's a handout, which I'm showing, that's linked, that shows how to retrace your steps and what I'm going to cover. And I've also asked our high school librarians to join, and they should be on the other side in the chat. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask, and one of them will respond, and they can offer some suggestions. Please, ladies and gentlemen, offer some suggestions as you see something that I'm left out or needs further explanation. I would like to briefly start out by mentioning some copyright law, specifically fair use policies. I have found in my experience that educators sometimes misunderstand these policies, and they assume that because we're educators that we can use things pretty much whatever we want and share. And that's not exactly true. There are 4 exceptions under the fair use policy that cover under copyright law. One is, what is the purpose of what are we using it for? And for us, it's education. And that is one of the exceptions. So in that case, we're fine. We meet that criteria. The second one is the nature of the work. And by that, they mean, is this an informational text? Is this a novel? Is it a song? And fair use tends to be more agreeable to things that are informational because that information can usually be found in multiple sources. They are more strict about novels and music, songs, because those are unique items, unique materials. The third one is the amount that we're using, that we're sharing. I've often heard a 10% rule, although that's not really written. It's really more up to how large the resource is to start with and what percentage we're using. The last one is the effect on the market value. So for example, if we were to find a novel that we wanted to use, we couldn't find it online in one of our sources,
and we copied a chapter at a time and uploaded it and put it in Google Classroom. That's probably, unless you get permission from the author, which some of them have been very, very, like Rowling, all of her Harry Potter books are available online and in multiple languages. She's opened those up completely. And then sometimes it's not really up to the author, it's up to the copyright holder, which could be the publisher. Because, during spring break, while we were on spring break, Kwame Alexander was reading aloud from his books, and he was doing at a certain time, and they weren't recorded. And I messaged him in Twitter and asked if he would be okay, if it'd be okay if I recorded those because it was spring break and our kids wouldn't be able to watch it and I could show it later. And I even said, well, we put this in Google Classroom. And he said, unfortunately, he would not be allowed to do that. So, I mean, and I had abided by his wishes and did not copy his read alouds. So I think it's important that we keep all this in mind and that we're good examples. That we're following ethical use of information and materials, and that we're showing our students how to use ethical use of materials. If you need to copy excerpts or small sections, that's perfectly fine, but be aware not to copy the full thing unless you have permission specifically. So, enough on that. Let's move on to some stuff. It is National Poetry Month. So I thought the first resource would be good to find a poet's resource. And this one's actually just a website, open to anybody. I don't usually use the login. I just go ahead and navigate around here. So you can find poems, you can actually just type in, you can find poems by looking under theme or what do they have, poet of the day. They have this themes or occasions. I just out of acting like I'm a kid, maybe I've heard of the poet named Maya something, but I can't remember her name. So maybe I just type that in and see what we get. And down here, we're going to get, there's Maya Angelou. So if I click on her name, it's going to give us information about the poet. And of course, we get the ads because we're using the free version. We'll also get poems by her as well. And they don't, it's not a full text where you have an entire book, but it does give you a sampling of different authors or different poets. There's also information up here. We have materials for teachers. They have some lesson plans that they have created for certain poems. They have poems that are specifically for certain age groups. So if I click on poems for teens, it's going to only pull up things that would be appropriate for teenagers. And then it's also broken down by topic. Also, if I want to find poets, maybe I'm looking for somebody in particular, or maybe I'm trying to find a poet that's representative of a certain time or era or school. So I can look by state. If I want to look for poets from a different region or a specific region, I can search there. Or if I wanted to do this, I could search under the school or movement and, beat poetry. I could look up and see who's a beat poet. And there's Allen Ginsberg, there's Jack Kerouac, the ones that I've heard of, David Meltzer. And in here, let's pull up Allen Ginsberg. Again, it's only going to give me some of his poems. But I also think it's interesting, and this is hit or miss. It's not in every person doesn't have this accessibility. But if I were to look under here, a supermarket in California, this particular one, this is kind of neat. It's a recording of him reading it. There's a lot of these have recordings of the poem being read. Some of the ones by Maya Angelou, it's her reading her own poetry. There's some of somebody else reading her poetry. So it's kind of nice being able to hear somebody actually read it, and then you can follow along with the text. So hopefully there's something in there that you can use with your students this week or this month, since it's National Poetry Month. So now let's move on to some books. Let's see what we can find if we are looking for some actual full text books for our kids. And to be honest, there's proportionally a lot more for younger students than for older students. And a lot of what is available for our older students is classics, because those are in public domain and they're no longer covered under copyright. And by that, I'm talking about things like Shakespeare or Moby Dick. A lot of the AP novels are actually in public domain. But let's find, I'm really looking specifically for contemporary fiction, stuff that kids would read for leisure or that they could read for self-selected reading, just to kind of keep them with a book, keep them interested in reading. So first we're going to go Now, I know my colleagues over the last week have shown you guys how to access your school LibGuides, and that's how you're going to want to access these. So you probably recognize this page, and I'm going to use Doss High School LibGuide as my entry point. So I click here, and then right up here, everybody's got this, has this tab added, NTI Online Books and Resources. If I click here, now everything, regardless of grade level, is listed here. And that is basically so that students can self-select what grade level that they can read at. We didn't want to make specific ones and limit it, because we have younger students that might read at higher levels, and we have some older students that might need books written at a lower level in order for them to actually enjoy doing this. So the first one we're going to look at is Junior Library Guild. Oh, and remember, I can't give you passwords in a public forum like this, but if you do need passwords, some of these require passwords, some of them don't. Make sure you contact your school librarian, and they can give you access to all the passwords for all these databases that require. But here's Junior Library Guild right here. And actually, let's click on here. And this one's actually open without a password. So if I scroll down a little, it's going to show me the access to the elementary, middle, and high school screen. I'm going to stay focused on just the high school screen. Although it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to look at the middle school one as well, because there is a lot of crossover between the middle school and the high school books. And you can tell some of these are audio and some of them are in print. You can tell a couple of ways. They have a little icon, like a little computer screen, if it's a print, a little headphones, if it's audio, plus it says play or read, depending on how you would access it. So I'm going to scroll down to a book that I saw that I know we have in a lot of our high school libraries, this one called The Big Bet, just to kind of show you what it looks like, what a student would see if they were going to read this. So it gives them first a little synopsis, and then if they decide they want to read it, they just click the read button. And hopefully the internet's moving quickly. Oh, there we go. Up here in the top left corner, these three bars, this is typically the table of contents. And you're going to want to keep track of where you are when you read these books, because we're not logged in, it's not going to maintain any kind of history for us. So we'll have to kind of keep track of page numbers or chapters so that we can tell where we are when we want to come back to the beginning. Up here, we can change the settings as far as zooming in and out. This actually is a search that would search for a particular word. And that would come in really handy in nonfiction books. If we were looking for a specific term, we can pull that up and search for that term, and that would take us there. I think it's real fine. Under settings, we can change if it's a single page or double page. I kind of like it where the book is completely laid out, when they have just like we'll look if you're reading a real book or a print book. They're all real books. And then lastly, this is for citations and printing, which we probably won't use this. So I'm here, I want to read my book. All I have to do is start turning my page. And I could also just go ahead and, I don't want to read the copyright page, I can just skip to the prologue. And here we are, here's our text. And it's just a matter of going through and reading it. And like I said, and then when we get to a certain spot we're going to stop at, we can keep track of our page number or what chapter we're on, so we know how to get back to it. So that's how the Library Guild operates. Let's go on to Mackin. So I'm going to get out of here. And Mackin is on this page down at the bottom. This one, Mackin Via. This one does have a password. So I'm going to go ahead and I've already logged in. And if I was to use the All Resources button up here, it's going to give me over 5,000 hits. So that's not really very helpful as far as searching. I'm probably going to want to use different ways of finding things. Of course, if you have a title you already know, you can search by title. If you have a particular author, you can search that way. And I will say, I found a lot of books in this particular database that I had as a high school librarian on my shelf. So there's a lot of good stuff in here. I can also search by categories. So let's just go down here and look at the general fiction, because I'm focusing more on fiction because we have so much available in all the Gale databases for informational. And there are information books in here. And of course, people can read them. But I really wanted our kids to be able to have access to something to read for the fun of it. Granted, a lot of them read fiction, nonfiction for the fun of it. But I also, the contemporary novel is what is really kind of hard to find. So that's why I'm kind of focusing on that. So I pulled up just general fiction. And I can kind of scroll down. Of course, here's our public domain books, 2000 Leagues Under the Sea. Oh, look at this. The Accident. I recognize that cover. If I click on this, yeah, Port City High. We have these in a lot of our high school libraries. So the kids would actually recognize these titles. If I want to see how many we have of this series, we have a few. Yep, okay. And let's say I've already read this series, but I want some more books by this particular author. I can click on the author's name and it will show me everything by that particular author. So she's got a couple of series out, it looks like. Let's say I don't have anything in particular I want to read, but I was reading a book when I was in school and I had to give it back, of course. And I want to continue reading that series. There's, for example, there's a really popular basketball series called Hoop City. I didn't clear my filters. That's why that happened. There we go. Let's put it back. Again, this is a set that I bet a lot of our middle school and high school librarians will recognize. These are on a lot of our shelves. Let's say I'm not necessarily a basketball fan, but I'm a football fan. The same author, Sam, he also has written this set, Texas Fridays. So there's quite a lot in here that I think our kids would find enjoyable to read just for the fun of it. So what does it look like when I open it? Let's open up this football book here. This one will do something that the other one would not. This is something that Junior Library Guild would not do. This one will actually read to you. If I click the, if I don't like that voice, I can change it to something a little more. I can change the speed, make it go faster or slower. Or if that's annoying, we can turn it off and just read the book. If we click any place in the white, it'll get rid of that blue border. And if we want to move forward, we can click the little arrow and change pages, and then we can click again on the white and it gets rid of that blue part that's covering up our text. Again, the three little lines up here are our table of contents. So we can keep track of where we were and move around the book as we get finished with it. So this is what Mackin looks like. And I think this read aloud will come in handy for some students, and other students it's going to make a little bit nuts, but I think it's a handy tool to have where they can have it read to them if they need it. One more source I want to show everybody is one that's available through EBSCOhost. They have opened up this high school ebook collection. I'm going to click here. Now, a lot of our students, a lot of our high school students in particular, are going to recognize this screen because this is the same screen that they've been taught to use when they look for journal articles. There's a couple of different ways to search here. If they have an author, they can look them up. If they have, a lot of the high school English kids classes, they have to read The Awakening. So let's just type in Kate Chopin and see what we find. This would be useful for a teacher that wanted to read a certain book with multiple kids. Here it is, The Awakening. So I can click right on here, and it gives us two choices on what format we want to read it in. We have a PDF, and then we have EPUB. And they both do look fairly similar. The PDF one, that's where they basically scanned the book. And then this is the PDF version of that. And whoa, it's way big. Down here, this little icon, page, click that, and I'll make it a little bit more manageable. We also have our chapters, and then this actually gives us some information from the publisher on what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do, because you could send part of it to Google Drive. My suggestion, if you wanted to use this as a class, is to use this permanent link, the permalink. If you click on this, come on, open up, and then copy and paste this link, you can put that in a Google Classroom, or you could email to your students, or both. And then when they clicked on that link, it would take them directly to this book. Yes, they would have to log into Kentucky Virtual Library, but they wouldn't have to search. You wouldn't have to worry about them getting a different book, a different person. It would direct to this particular site. looks pretty much the same as the other ones when we're scrolling through. You can either use the arrow below or you can use the slider to go, if you want to have the pages move that way. This is just kind of however you're more comfortable doing it. And you can make the font bigger or smaller depending on how you use the little zooms, pluses and minuses. Whoa, little. Let's go back and I want to show you a couple more things. Yeah, that's more of a book you might find being assigned for reading. And make sure when you're in the database that you use these back buttons and not the back button up here. It'll make your searches, it'll keep you in the right spot. So let's say I want to do a genre search. Now maybe my students are just wanting to find something fun to read. So horror fiction is always a popular genre. And I'm keeping this very broad. I'm not selecting things. I'm just kind of putting everything as a keyword search. So it's giving me books about horror fiction and how to write it. And then I can scroll down here and see what looks interesting. All the House of Usher, a little Edgar Allan Poe. Yes, now we're talking about stuff again. Picture Dorian Gray. Those are all in there because they're public domain. And you're going to find those in a lot of places. But then we find things like, MySpace. Hey, Ilsa Bick. This is going to be, this book, you'll find this on a lot of high school library shelves. Let's say you want to find out what else is here that's by this particular author, because she's a pretty popular young adult author. If I click her name, this will take me to everything that's listed by that particular author. And I see a bunch of books that I would see sitting on a lot of high school shelves where the kids are going to see these and go, hey, I may not have read it, but I've seen it sitting there. And actually, this has the entire Atlas trilogy. So these are a few years older. That's probably why they're in here. But they're still going to be very much of interest to our population of what any things they might want to read. And again, 2 different formats. I'll show you what the EPUB one looks like, since we kind of only did the PDF one. And it looks pretty much the same as the other one. Although I think it takes a little bit longer to load, because as you change pages, it has to keep loading it. Because I think this is more of a online access rather than just loading an article. So I tend to want to use the PDF one just because I just think it's a little bit easier to use, a little bit. See how it's having to do this in every page. So I probably would steer my students to, if you have PDF, use that particular format. And then there's one more thing I wanted to show everybody, because yes, we could look through here, and I hope you guys will spend some time surfing through. Oh, I know what I want to show you. You can, if you have some students that are older and maybe more mature, up here you can add more databases to this. So I can search, giving us access to a public library collection. And yes, the high school collection is probably included in here, but now this is this box where it says public collection, that's going to add some adult books as well. So depending on your population, depending on the age of your students, you could show them different access for different grades. And we probably don't need to have that in there, but we're going to get a different set of books now that I've added. Now we're going to get the adult horror books as well. And again, you may not want everybody to know about this, although they'll probably find it. It added a few. But oftentimes there's some students that are interested in reading the adult books. So last thing I was going to show you is on here. And this is really where they can find all sorts of good stuff. If the public library has really relaxed their restrictions, ordinarily you had to prove residency and prove your address and all sorts of stuff to get a library card. Now they can just go online and fill out their online application, and then they will virtually send you a library card and a login. And that allows you to read their database of ebooks. And that's where you're going to find The Hate You Give and the stuff that's really current and the things that are just published that we don't necessarily have access to in these databases. So if they already have a library card and maybe they owe them some fines, if they call, they can have that restricted or lifted. This would be something, especially with our high school kids, to have them pursue that, maybe post that someplace in your course or to direct them to that so that they can open up their library cards. So they can start using materials from the book library as well. That's pretty much everything that I had to share. share with you guys, I know I kind of talk kind of fast. Hopefully my compadres out there are answering some questions. Sora is another one, and that's where a lot of the Harry Potter books are. And I think Wimpy Kid is in there as well. But those really are the only ones that the high school kids are going to be interested in for the most part. So
this was great, Nancy. And you have several different high school librarians here. Ballard, Laura's here, and Adrian and Angela. So many here.
Great.
Thanking you for all of these great resources. Oh, we have Englehart Elementary. Evelyn is here. So awesome. These resources, and I'm not sure, do we have this linked, Nancy, on the...
Well, every school LibGuide, every single one of the
Right.
school LibGuides has that page. So if I were to go to Atherton High School, it has the NTIs right here. We've loaded those into every school page, elementary, middle, and high. They all have this page.
Awesome.
And then the librarians then have the passwords that they would need, like to get into Mac, and since it requires a password, they would have the password Kentucky Virtual Library that they could share with all their, all their staff and students. So this is on everybody's page. So if they can at least get to their school LibGuide page, then they can get to this, and then they can get to all of the print books that are available out there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. We appreciate it. And you guys.
And any questions flying around out there? Is everybody
Nope,
tracking?
there aren't any questions. Just a lot of compliments to you.
Oh, well, great. Thanks. Thank you so much. Well,
no, thank you.
Shall I unshare?
Yes, you can unshare now. Mm-hmm.
There it is. Stop.
And then if you're still with us, you can stick around for a little bit longer. We have a few minutes for our viewers. We have a few minutes until our next session. And our next session is going to be Mindfulness with Jennifer and Elizabeth. So I'm excited to learn from them. That's what's great about this. I get to learn from all of these wonderful rock stars from across our district. So you will want to stick around for that. Great. Laura said, thanks so much. I learned new information and I really appreciate it. Great, Laura. I'm glad that you joined us today.
Me too.
And Debbie and Adrian, they're all thanking you, Nancy, in the chat. So
great. I'm glad they could make it.
Yes, it's great. And while we're waiting for a few moments, I have a 7 tips for remote teaching. We have a really good video, which we don't have time to show that, but I do have time to show this infographic. So I'm going to open this up real fast here. So you should be able, our viewers, you should be able to see this on your screen. So 7 tips for remote teaching. I thought this did a really good job of explaining remote teaching and what this looks like now for us, especially during the NTI. And you can see on the left, it says number 1, old school rules are marked out, and grading, making sure to give feedback. And then 2, not forgetting about our students and our own social emotional learning. Lead with love, not with lessons. And 3, minimizing synchronous online meetings. So trying to minimize those as much as possible. And then we have, let's see, number 4, not one size fits all. So remembering the modifications that might be needed for your students. And that is assuming that there is equitable access for all of your kiddos, which we know we are trying very hard to do here in JCPS. And then number 5, individual conversations. Having office hours for your kids, maybe short video chats if possible or as possible. And then remembering to keep it simple. 2 to 3 sentence instructions max. That's really important for the kids right now. And also you have to remember for the parents too, us parents that are working at home and have little ones that we're trying to help with their e-learning. And then the last one is to offer grace. So we thought this was a really good infographic for 7 tips for remote teaching. And we also have a video that when we have more time, we will play. So if you are joining us right now for our next session, here in just a few more minutes, we are going to have mindfulness with Jennifer Beasley and Elizabeth Lewis. So I'm excited to hear from them. And just as a reminder, on our JCPS NTI support page, portal, the teacher toolkit, once you click on that, we have our virtual training schedule button here, as well as several different instructional tools for our teachers to use. Some of these come from our department with digital innovation, but also teaching and learning. They have a lot of resources there for you as well. So you'll definitely want to check that out, as well as our 4 core digital tools that we are providing support for during this NTI. And then your digital agility toolkit. I love seeing all of the different posts on Twitter about teachers becoming more digitally agile. We have several getting that level 1 Google certification out of the way, as well as some Apple teachers. So that's really exciting. Okay, Elizabeth, are you and Jennifer just about ready?
Yes, I think we are.
Okay. Are you going to be sharing your screen today or?
Yes. Okay, so should I just go ahead?
Yes,
ready?
you can go ahead and I'll introduce you in just a second. We have about 30 more seconds, but go ahead and get your screen shared and we'll make sure that's all working for us. Sylvia, I see in the chat you just asked where can you access the 7 tips. That's a great question. I'm hoping maybe we can get that linked on our JCPS virtual training schedule here soon. It's also on Twitter. If you look, it's on Twitter. Hey, Kayla, I'm excited to have you here again. All right, so at the bottom, oh, that little black bar that popped up, Elizabeth, if you could you click on, are you in Power? I'm trying to see. Okay, I was trying to see if you could do the closed captioning, but I don't see it.
Let me see if it's in options.
Is that a PowerPoint file or a Google slide?
It's Google Slides.
Well, that's different. Normally it shows up right there. Okay, well, that's okay. We're not going to spend too much time on that. So it is 3:00. If you're just now joining us, thanks for being here. My name is Kathleen Receiver, and I'm one of the digital innovation leaders with JCPS. And we're here today with Jennifer Beasley and Elizabeth Lewis, and they're going to talk to us about mindfulness. So I'm really excited to hear from you ladies. If one of you are not presenting, if you'll mute your mic while the other one presents, that way we won't hear feedback from you. And we will be ready whenever you are.
Super. Well, we are so excited to be here. I am Jennifer Beasley. I work at Cochran Elementary. Hello to all my Cochran Cat friends. I'm the mental health practitioner, and I am joined by my colleague.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Lewis. I am a practitioner at Auburndale Elementary. So,
go ahead.
First, we just kind of want to give you a brief definition of mindfulness. So, mindfulness is a state of attention on the present without attaching negative thoughts and judgments. It's a way to live in the moment spiritually, in the here and now. You can deeply experience life without attaching negative thoughts and judgments about situations or relationships. Simply put, mindfulness is to notice what is happening in the present moment while being aware of your senses, thoughts, and emotions without reacting. Non-judgmental awareness. The little quote at the bottom says, worrying about the future is like trying to eat a hole in a donut. It is munching on what isn't.
All right. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I am going to go ahead and kind of call us to order. I have a lovely bell that I use in Ms. Murphy's class when we have our Mindfulness Tuesdays, but sadly my bell is at elementary. So I'm going to go ahead and ring my glass here, and that'll be a call for us to go ahead and notice the breath. So if you will go ahead and settle yourself in your chair, feel your body against the chair, feel your feet on the floor. Put one hand on your belly and then one on your upper chest. Take a breath and a nice big exhale. All right, and on the ring, let's go ahead and take another inhale. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Again. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Feeling yourself settle in the chair, becoming present to the moment. And one last breath. In through the nose and out through the mouth. All right. This is the way that we focus ourselves, by maintaining focus on the moment just through the simple reminder of the breath. It's something that happens automatically, but when we draw our attention to it, it allows us to focus and attend to the present moment. All right. And Elizabeth is going to give us some background about how our body works, especially when we're under stress, particularly helpful at this moment.
So I want to share with you all just a little bit about, when we think about mindfulness and why it's useful, we have to think about what's actually happening inside our brains and our bodies when we feel stress and anxiety. So when we feel threatened, our brain reacts. Our hippocampus is our little memory holder. So it stores our memories and our emotions. And when we see or hear or feel something that we feel is threatening, it sends signals of danger to the amygdala, which processes our fear and other emotions. And so if the amygdala is sensing a lot of fear and becomes overly activated, the prefrontal cortex, which controls our planning and decision making, it can't do its job because the amygdala is sending so many signals of fear to it. So as this is happening, we notice that things are also happening in our bodies. So when the brain is on red alert, cortisol levels rise in our bodies. That creates an acid in the stomach. It can cause stomach aches. Cortisol also causes tension in our muscles, which can cause headaches, among many other symptoms. So if you look at the image on the screen, these are just some of the symptoms that people experience from stress and anxiety. People may experience trouble breathing, sweating, stomach issues, panic attacks in worst cases. And when we think about our children, our students, and how they react to stress and anxiety, they may show signs of clinginess or neediness. They may be withdrawn. These are all kinds of signs that we may not realize as a reaction for them to stress or anxiety in their bodies. So bringing mindfulness into it, being able to distract the brain gives that amygdala a break. It lets that fear kind of settle, and it allows your prefrontal cortex to start working again. And that's what kind of controls us being able to make rational thoughts. So just figuring out some ways to distract the mind with some mindfulness techniques, either for you, or school staff, or your students. Anybody can use these techniques. So essentially, what is mindfulness? Is your mind full? Like the image on the left, the person on the left, are you thinking about something that happened yesterday or something that might happen tomorrow? Are you thinking about issues and problems that you can't deal with right now? Or are you being mindful of the present moment? What's happening right in front of you? What are you seeing in the moment? What are you experiencing in the moment? What are you feeling in this moment? That is essentially mindful. So Jennifer and I would like to share with you all a few mindfulness techniques. And there are many, many mindfulness techniques that you can use, but we would like to share a couple with you all that we enjoy doing for ourselves, for our students. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer now.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I'm going to go ahead and back my chair up a little bit. We're going to go ahead and use mindful movement. So I'd like to invite you to think about a tree. Think about the way that the tree is rooted deeply into the ground. The base of the tree is broader than the trunk. And then that strength rises up through the trunk into branches that reach up to the sun, to the sky. And then you might have leaves or limbs that flow in the breeze, just like in this willow tree that you notice. Mindful movement gives us the chance to use both the breath and movement in concert to help us soothe our emotions and to quiet our minds. So we're going to go ahead and use this image of this flexible and strong tree as we move into a yoga posture. Okay, so you can actually do this pose seated or standing. You can also use the wall for support if you like. So this is a pose that's good for anybody. So go ahead and just take it easy, listen to your body. And what I'd like you to do is notice your feet on the ground. If you feel comfortable, you can stand, but again, it's fine to sit. I'm going to do the posture in the middle. So when I stand, I notice that my feet are parallel like railroad tracks, and my feet are about hip width apart. And hip width is 2 fists together. Sometimes we overestimate how wide our hips are, so you should just be able to put 2 fists in between your feet. Go ahead and notice all 4 corners of your feet on the ground. So your little toes, your big toes, both sides of your heels. All right. Draw yourself up nice and tall, steady and strong, and bring your hands up in front of your chest, right? With palms facing at the heart. With a big breath in through the nose and a big exhale through the mouth. Another inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Focus on the strength and stability of those feet as you go ahead and shift your weight to your left foot. Pick up your right foot and put the right foot either at the ankle or on the calf or on the upper part of the thigh. The only thing to remember is don't put it on the side of the knee. If your foot is on the side of your knee, it can cause your knee to kind of get a little bit torqued. It can overextend your knee, and you don't want that to happen. So once you feel steady in your foot, notice a point just past your computer. Could be on the wall, could be out a window, but a stationary position, and that'll help you keep your balance. So when you keep your eye on that goal, that eye on that spot in front of you, you can maintain your focus and your balance. And then you can raise your hands if that feels comfortable. And kind of imagine that tree that is both strong and flexible as you stand up straight and tall, remembering to focus on the breath. And on the next exhale, bring your hands back down. Release your foot. And notice the strength and the energy in both of your legs now. And let's go ahead and switch. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing for our left side. So we're going to shift our weight to be inside our right foot. And then we're going to bring our right foot to our ankle or our calf. And then we're going to, or our thigh, if you're feeling really flexible. All right. Breath in, breath out. Really feel yourself rooting into the ground. Notice your foot as it is maintaining balance, and keep that image of the tree steady in your mind. You might think about the willow tree, or you might have another tree on your mind. Whatever tree you imagine, that's just fine. And envision roots burrowing down into the ground as you lift your arms up high towards the sun. Breathing in and breathing out, maintaining flexibility as you reach up toward the sun, and you can imagine what it might be like to be a tree in a forest or a meadow. And then on the exhale, bring your hands back to heart center, release your left foot. Take a moment to notice the sensation in your legs and in your torso. Notice if you're feeling a little stronger, a little more flexible, a little bit more stretched out. And then relax your hands. This is something that we can keep in mind during this NTI time when we're all needing to be strong and flexible and maintain our focus despite lots of different things that are kind of coming at us. I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth. She's got a great guided meditation for us.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. So I'm going to just teach you a quick new way to get your body calm that you can do anywhere. So this is a guided meditation, and I'd love to just invite you to sit comfortably, close your eyes. I'm going to lead you through this guided meditation. So let's imagine that there's a magic wand with a warm blue light, and it's raised just above your head. As the warm, gentle wand passes over each part of your body, that part becomes completely relaxed. The wand starts to move over your forehead, leaving it warm and relaxed. Next, the warm light travels over your nose, cheeks, and your jaw, and your face feels soft and warm and completely relaxed. The wand continues down over your neck and shoulders. You feel calm. And then over your chest and back, filling you with the warm light, leaving all the muscles in your arms, back, chest, and belly very relaxed as you breathe slowly in and out. The magic wand continues to pass over your hips and your thighs, relaxing all the muscles, down over your knees, your lower legs, finally your feet. And as it warms and relaxes every single toe, all your tension is gone, and it exits your toes along with the calming beam of the wand. With one final deep breath in, let's all open our eyes, sit back in our chairs, wiggle our arms and legs a bit to wake them up, ready to be focused on your day. So that was just a simple guided meditation, just an easy way to kind of relax your body and mind. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, who's going to discuss some common problems that come up with mindfulness practice.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So even experienced mindfulness practitioners, when they sit down to practice from time to time, do struggle with thoughts that kind of won't stop. In fact, this is so common that there's a phrase that captures this. It's actually called monkey mind. And it's that idea that your thoughts are running around in your brain, popping like popcorn or moving around like little monkeys. So if this happens for you, if it happened for you today during this exercise, don't worry, you're in good company. Even people who've been doing this for years, masters of mindfulness, have still have that experience. I know I was first introduced to mindfulness when I was working with people with cancer, and that mindfulness was an incredible gift to my clients, and I've practiced it since. Some of the common problems, in addition to this monkey mind, might be finding time to practice. So many of my teachers have talked about how if you link a mindfulness practice to something that you do every day, it can be really helpful. So for example, you can have a quick practice first thing in the morning when you wake. You can do 3 mindful breaths, Or maybe you want to do it at your lunchtime, or maybe you want to do it right before bed. Just if you can connect it to another activity that you do every single day, it can really help. Some contraindications or conditions that might make it difficult to practice mindfulness. I'd like to mention that if you have an anxiety disorder, or if you have a panic disorder, or even a history of complex trauma, any of these things that have been diagnosed by a professional, these might be conditions that might make it harder to practice mindfulness when you're just seated quietly. However, I have found that when I practice mindfulness with someone with those disorders, be it a child or an adult, it can work, but sometimes I modify the practice to be an active practice. For example, we're not just sitting quietly, we might be doing another activity while maintaining that focus on the breath. So, for example, doing a moving meditation, a walk, some type of exercise, something like that, but something that you know so thoroughly that you can do it on your own. You really don't have to think too hard about it. For me, a good one is using mindfulness when I'm washing the dishes. So really notice the water. And of course, right now during NTI, with 2 children at home, I'm getting a lot of practice with washing the dishes for 3 meals a day we spend at home. So the water rushing over my hands, the sponge in my hand, the heft of the dish, these are all things that can bring me back to that present moment. So next, what I'd like to go ahead and talk about the 5 senses. Again, our 5 senses are a gift to us that we can actually use to increase our mindfulness and our ability to stay in the present moment. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and take your right hand and take your left hand and then wrap your left hand around the thumb of your right hand. So your left hand is kind of squeezing your thumb a little bit. It's giving it compression to a degree. And when you compress those joints, you're also soothing your nervous system. So let's take a breath in and breath out. A breath in and a breath out. A breath in and a breath out. And we're going to go ahead and notice 5 things that we can see. So just look around your environment and notice 5 things you can see. So it could be colors or shapes or textures. For me, I notice the computer in front of me and the screen with the light. But then beyond that, I notice the color of the wall and the shape of some of the toys just beyond that. So now it's your turn. Just go ahead and take a moment to notice the things that you see. And now we'll go ahead and take our pointer finger and go ahead and wrap our left hand around our right pointer finger, taking a big breath in. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. And now at this time, I'd like you to notice 5 things that you can hear. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes and you might be able to recognize things that you see more clearly, hear more clearly. It could be the sound of a car driving by or a bird outside. Could be the hum of the refrigerator or your children in the next room. Could be anything at all. Just notice what you hear. Good work. Good work. Now we're going to take our left hand and we're going to go ahead and squeeze gently that middle finger on our right hand. So taking our left hand and squeezing the middle finger from our right hand. Breath in and breath out. Breath in and breath out. And with this, I'd like you to notice the sensations that you feel. Notice maybe your socks and your shoes. Whatever you notice, whatever the sensations are, it could be cold or hot. You might be tired or hungry. No need to offer judgment. Just simply label those things and focus on the breath. So now go ahead and focus on the fourth finger. So your ring finger, you'll take your left hand and gently squeeze the ring finger on your right hand. Breath in, breath out. Inhale again through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. And one more breath. And with this finger, I'd like you to notice things that you really, really, really love to smell. I'm going to invite you to use your imagination and imagine 5 things that you really, really love to smell. It might be something you smell right now, but it could be something that you just remember smelling. Could be the smell of honeysuckle on a summer night. It could be hot biscuits baking or cornbread in the oven. Whatever scent it is, just go ahead and notice that scent that brings you joy and makes you so happy. And I'll give you a moment to find those scents. Now you're going to focus on your pinky, and you're going to take your left hand and wrap your left hand around your pinky. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And again, I invite you to use your imagination. And I'd like you to imagine things that you love to taste. So it might be a juicy strawberry, fresh off the vine. It might be something delicious that you remember from your childhood or from a happy holiday. Could be anything at all. Just notice 5 things and focus on your breathing. Now go ahead and relax. Relax your hands. Place them back on your lap. Go ahead and give your shoulders a little rotation. Move your head to the left and right and bring your awareness back to your chair. So this 5 senses meditation, this is something that you can easily use in the classroom or in your personal life. I noticed on the chat that there are some questions about handouts. That would be something that we can certainly get to people. This activity is also really great as a writing prompt. So that's something to think about, and also as an art prompt. And I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth, and she is going to take us to the beach.
So this is another type of kind of engaging your senses meditation. You can really take yourself anywhere. Think about your favorite place that you'd like to be. Try to imagine what it feels like and smells like. For this example, I'm going to use the beach. So I invite you to close your eyes and imagine that you're walking out onto the beach. You can feel the sand on your feet. Is it hot? You can wiggle your toes down into the sand. You can feel the warm sun on your skin, your arms, your face. You can feel the breeze blowing through your hair. You can smell the ocean, salt water. You can hear the sound of the waves crashing. As you take steps through the sand with your toes wiggling in and out, you walk over to the water. The water washes over your feet, goes back into the ocean. Take a big deep breath in. Smell that salt water. As you exhale, you can open your eyes. It's just a good way to kind of calm your mind, distract your mind, and put you into a different frame of mind. And like I said, you can use anywhere, your favorite place to be, and just kind of let your mind drift away and relax and go to a different place. And once again, this is something you can use for your students, for staff, school staff, and of course for yourself.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was really delightful. One of the perks of co-presenting with Elizabeth is that I've gotten to go to the beach in my imagination, I think 4 times in the past week. And what an incredible gift that is. All right. So to close, I'm going to go ahead and have you sit back in your chair, feel your body in the chair. And I'm going to go ahead and ring my bell. So you can put your hand on the top of your chest or on your belly. And notice the breath rising and falling. And now a big exhale. And with the bell, let's inhale through our nose. Inhale and exhale, letting go of all we no longer need, any stress or frustration. Again, one more ring. Inhaling calm and exhaling any stress or worry. And one more time. Inhale and exhale. So thank you so much for sharing time with us today. We're really grateful that you took time out of your busy schedule. If you are interested in getting in touch with Elizabeth or myself, we would be really happy for you to reach out by email. Our contact information is right here. And if there are questions, we are happy to take them now.
Thank you both so much. This was wonderful, a wonderful way to end our learning for today. I enjoyed it thoroughly. We had a couple questions. Let's see. Nishan from Cochrane Elementary in the city. What makes a good guided meditation? And could we create them in a way that's personalized to our class?
Yes. There are lots of different ways to do that. A great way to do that would be to start with your class. To start with a body scan meditation would be a good one. I know, and that's definitely a good one to start with for young kids. Elizabeth, is there something you'd like to add for that?
Yes, you can look on YouTube. There's so many guided meditations, and you can just look up guided meditations for kids. You can kind of run through them and see which one you think would best suit your class and the age group. There's a ton of resources out there. Jennifer, did you want to talk about the mark, since we didn't get
Yeah. Can we? I guess we can't show that slide. Okay, that's okay. I can definitely share that resource. UCLA has a wonderful website called MARC, Meditation Awareness something. MARC is the abbreviation. This is why I typed it out. They've got wonderful guided meditations anywhere from 3 minutes up to 19 minutes. So it's really perfect for those moments when you just have a few minutes of spare time before your class returns. it could be particularly great right now while we're at home. You can definitely share it with your family even. Those are great resources. And then I also have a wonderful video that we've included in the presentation. You'll be able to click on the presentation in the NTI schedule sheet, and you'll be able to access that presentation, and you'll be able to see our resources there. Additionally, locally, there are actually three resources that might be of use. Interfaith Paths to Peace has a meditation every morning. If you're interested in practicing, you can check out their website. It's live on Zoom at 9:00 every morning. The Passionist Earth and Spirit Center also has great resources. And I think I'll end there because we're a little bit over time.
That's
Thank
okay.
you guys.
That's okay. Thank you so much. I think I know where my children and I will be tomorrow morning at 9:00. So great. Thanks so much to both of you. And again, like they said, their resources are linked in the JCPS virtual training schedule. So you can find those there. You have wonderful comments in the chat thanking you for these great resources. So thanks again. And we will be back tomorrow for our viewers tomorrow morning at 9:00. And I hope many of you will join us then Thursday morning for creating lessons in smart learning suite for ELs. That'll be available on demand, but Suzanne Kramer and Diane Cole will be back for Common Lit as an NTI resource. So until then, yes.
One more thing.
Sure.
We'll be back at 1:30. So if you have friends that you feel like would be interested in hearing this presentation, send them to us at 1:30 on Friday afternoon. We would be thrilled to share this information with anybody from your building or any building at all.
Yes, absolutely. That's great too. They will be back. So thank you so much, ladies, and thanks everyone else. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. Awesome. Thanks. Bye, everyone.